I believe most of us who are working in the DRR spectrum are familiar with this kind of infographic, that we know that HISC is a combination of the hazard and exposure and vulnerability, as well as response. So within the heat, when we look at the vulnerability, we are looking at, what's the health status, what are the socioeconomic statuses of the populations, what are the housing conditions. Eddie mentioned, for example, the study that was done in Nairobi, looking at informal settlements, the demographics, how are the old and the young, how are people responding differently to the various exposures of heat risk, and then, what is the perception of people, because if you appreciate it as a risk, then definitely you're able to do something about it. If you don't, then you just don't care. When we look at the response, what are our early warning systems like? What interventions do we have to be able to address heat? What is our behavior around the heat season? Are we conscious? Do we do things differently? Then in terms of exposure, urbanization, my colleague Crispin has just talked about, how complex it is to deal with early warnings in urban setting. The urban heat island effect is also a compounding factor towards increasing the urban heat risk. Population density, outdoor activities, all this, when you put this all together, increase our risk towards heat. And of course, from the hazard perspective, we look at the humidity, we look at the air quality, and then of course the extreme temperature. So when you put all this together, it helps us define the risk of heat and how we should be able to address this. So a deep dive, a brief sneak peek into the heat early warning systems. And I just put here the definition of the heat health warning system. I know broadly when we look at early warning systems, we are looking at an integrated approach where hazard warning information forecasting, risk analysis information, communication, response capacities are all integrated to enable individuals, institutions be able to take action before the impacts of a hazard are felt. So that's broadly the early warning system. When we zoom into the health early warning system, it's a similar definition, but this time we are zooming into the use of the meteorological forecast to initiate public health actions that are designed to reduce or mitigate the heat-related impacts on human health. Of course, heat becoming a health impact, we are looking at its impact on the human body, on people, and if we look back over a decade ago, 2003, where in Europe we had over 70,000 people dying as a result of extreme heat, heat causing impacts on people, causing heat stress, heat stroke. There is also, so all these impacts of heat on the human body, on the human system, caused it as a public health concern. And so, yes, the reason to zoom into the heat health early warning systems.